you know the saying, good things come to those who wait, and my God, have we all waited. The 80 series is basically finished. The suspension, the bar work, all the nitty gritty stuff that we did at Kinsella's, 4 months of hard work compiled into a final episode to show you the finished product. We go through everything, we show you in explicit detail, and we give you a rundown. Get excited? Welcome to the finished 80 series. This is a very exciting moment because this is the first time this car has seen the sun finished ever. It's been in a shed for 2 or 3 months. I have lost count. I've also stopped counting. This is making me sad. Now, we're about to do the beautiful shots that you have been waiting for. But first, we have to clean the dirt, the grime, the filth, the grease, the handprints, all the shit off it basically. So obviously, Chemical Guys, the Tough Mudder, super versatile soap designed for off-road people. It's going to remove dirt, mud, grime, grease, all that sort of stuff. But it actually also leaves a coating behind that's going to protect your car from getting dirt and mud sticking back to it. So that's really cool. And we're partnering that with the Chemical Guys Big Mouth Foam Lamps, which is also one of the best on the market, I think, when it comes to foam applicators. You just bang this into the end of pretty much any gurney, and it's going to give you that really nice, thick foam that we all know and love. So let's do it. Cue the car wash montage. Front of this car, there's only one way to describe it: pissed off. I think this looks absolutely sick. I am grinning from ear to ear, dog with two tails, all those sorts of things. I think this has just come up an absolute treat. Everything I could have wanted has been done by the team here. Starting things off, I'm going to try and remember it. Custom bull bar. Obviously the lower half is very similar to the style we had about 3 or 4 years ago, but we've added some hoops, we've changed the design up a little bit. We've got that unreleased Runva EWB 12K Max in there. We are going to have to change up this fair lead because obviously it hangs down a little bit, being that offset sort of dual purpose fair lead. Big self-locking hook. Runva sends you a soft shackle as well as factory with the winches now, which is super sick. Maddie's Flexi did that custom grill. We've kept that on there. Absolutely love it. We also fitted up the 4x6 Bush Doof RGB chasing headlights, which are super bright and basically going to mean that I don't actually have to run spotlights if I don't want to, because these things are going to pump out an absolute stack of light. Corner lamps, indicators, whatever you want to call them, are also a fantastic feature because we've obviously deleted the indicator panel on the front of this car by having the bull bar up so high. The other thing you'll notice is if you're looking at the side of this car, very little overhang past the front, which means fantastic approach angle, which was another aspect of this build we really wanted to keep in mind and really make sure we nailed. Obviously coming around this side, fitted up the GME fold down bracket, the 2.1 DBI GME aerial. These guys, Aussie company, Tony's a legend, nothing but the best on this car, and that's exactly what we've done. You can see here, we've come around and we've actually deleted that entire panel of Toyota from the side of this car in order to gain maximum clearance for the 37s. We actually did a 2-inch diff push. So we've brought the entire diff location forward 2 inches on this car, which gave us clearance to the back here, but also basically just way better approach angle. That triangle is, I personally think, it's sort of like a power lifter's shoulders. It makes the front of this car look so wide and tough and staunch. I'm just fucking in love with it. Big set of brushes. You guys have seen this in the bar work episode, so we're not going to touch too much on these, but obviously roll bar joiners, powder coated black by Narellan powder coating. They've done an absolutely phenomenal job. Now, for those with a keen eye, if you know 80 series, then you probably realize, hold on, that gap looks massive. That's true. The reason it looks massive is for 2 reasons. The first is there's no engine in here, so that's why it's sitting up a little bit. The other thing is we've actually lifted the guard height by about 3 inches. We lopped about 3 inches of guard out of here and trimmed the flares to suit. Originally, the flares would sit down around about there and would actually extend right down here past that bull bar. So we've trimmed all those up, actually raised them up, remounted them to make sure that this tire can actually flex. It's a lot of you guys out there in TikTok land, this and that, whatever it might be, that chuck 37s or 40s on your car and don't actually clearance anything and just let them mash the guards and that sort of thing. And that's not using the shocks properly, it's not letting your suspension work, it's not even utilizing the tires. So to fit 37s and to do it properly, this was the way we did it, and I think it's turned out an absolute treat. Now, jumping down here, let's quickly smash out the suspension. You guys have seen this in episode after episode. We're gonna really quickly jump through it. Now, up the front, custom Dwiz sheet metal housing from a GU Patrol. Stronger center, wider, super sick. Let's quickly talk about suspension. You've heard me waffling on about it episode after episode, so I'll quickly touch on it. 37-inch Maxxis Trepadors, DWC lock-up rims, genuine beadlock. In here, we've done a radiator guard, basically, I guess, radiator support scallop, so that we've allowed clearance for the bull bar and for the tires. We've fitted the 14-inch Bilstein 2.5-inch body coilovers. There are 14. We've also got the remote res mounted to the side of the custom tower. We've also got the 4-inch Bilstein hydro bump stops. They're an emulsion type bump stop, which is super sick, 4-inch stroke. So this thing is going to be just an absolute whoop king. We've also braced the entire front end of this chassis. We've also braced the back of it, and there's also some bracing up around where the 3-link mounts, which takes me to my next thing. We've gone with the 3 links with these big 2-inch solid alloy arms. So we actually put these on a scale and weighed them, and just in the alloy arms alone, you're going to be saving around 5 kilos per link, which is absolutely phenomenal. And it also meant that we could use big heims for everything, which means there's going to be no bind issues or anything like that, and no limit in articulation, which is super important too. Absolutely stoked. Obviously, we've got the chassis blasted and painted, which has come up an absolute treat, and Narellan powder coating has powder coated all the diffs for us and that kind of thing. Like I mentioned, there's no engine in there, so you can currently see straight through. It's like a little bloody window. What else did we do in the front here? I can't even remember there's been that much going on. We did a GU steering box on the other side, which is pretty exciting too. It also, because we were using a GU diff and GU knuckles, meant we didn't have to muck around with adapting the pitman arm and that sort of thing. So it was actually quite an easy affair. And then because we did push the diff forward 2 inches, we had to do a custom panhard mount, basically relocate everything, custom steering box mount and all that sort of stuff. And we braced the absolute out of everything, which is super cool. Now, moving down the side. This wrap makes me so horny every time I see it. But anyway, let's keep it PG. Scrubbies, boom, into a nice solid set of sliders. These are like a weld-on bracket type slider as well, which is super tough, makes them very easy to take on and off. And obviously with the roll bar joiner up there and a roll bar joiner down here, it means they are easy to remove and not too much of a drama if you do need to touch them up or you damage one or anything like that. These come into a rear set of hoops, which is, again, something you have to think about quite carefully when you're doing that on an 80 series, because there's not a lot of clearance there, and that is after we actually trim that flare. So that's all been taken care of. Coming around the back, we've got more suspension work that the guys did. So obviously, again, we've got the Treps, we've got the lock-up rims, we've got a brace factory 80 series rear housing. Now, a lot of people are asking in the comments why we didn't go to a 14 bolt, why we didn't go to a GU housing or something like that. It was a couple of reasons. The first was cost. We already had this housing, it was in good condition, it wasn't bent. The other was, this car's going to be making 1,000 horsepower at the crank. It's a lot of power. You want the tail shaft to be as straight and neutral as possible, so it needed to have an offset pumpkin for that tail shaft to be the case in order for us to maintain that transfer case. So the 80 series housing already has a 9.5 inch diff in it, which is strong as hell given drag cars run 9 inches. So we weren't too fussed about anything like that. What we did in the rear was we converted it to a 4-link rear end. We also put 14-inch coilovers, the same as the front in the back too, with those Bilstein 4-inch hydro bump stops. So you're probably asking, Sam, there's no way you can fit that in a wagon. Well, that's where you're wrong, because we got a little bit carried away with this car. There is no denying that. And what we've done, well, it's a little bit cheeky. Those rear scrubbies come around into this super gorgeous Kinsella's rear bar. Now, the lower part of this bar is actually something that you can just get off the shelf, and they do a couple of different swing arm options. I have this big thing with symmetry a lot of the time, so I really wanted in my head to have the tyre mounted at a bit of an angle right in the middle of the car. I think it looks cool. I don't care for jerry cans. I think they look trash. And I also think little short jerry can arms and a swing arm on one side looks also terrible. So we got rid of it. Now, in the back, how did we make the coilovers fit? That is how. We basically cut the floor out, mounted them in there, nice cross brace. We've got those Bilstein canisters mounted up in there as well. So that's, again, a 14-inch shock, 2.5 inches in diameter. With this current setup, we're looking at around 4 to 5 inches of up and around 10 inches of down travel, which I think is phenomenal, given a lot of guys out there have about 1 or 2 inches of up and 6 inches of down, if that. So this setup really has a lot of potential, I think. It's gonna be way more capable at wheeling than what I am capable of wheeling, so that's very cool. Another question we're gonna get asked a lot is, hey, Sam, hold on a second. Isn't that just gonna flick dirt, mud, and all that sort of shit in the car? The answer is yes. We've just left this as is for now because we've obviously got the Sydney Full Drive Show coming up. It's not gonna be driving yet, it doesn't have an engine. What we're gonna do is basically build a nice box that nutserts over that and gonna be completely sealed from the cab. So when we're sort of out in public or you guys wanna have a look at it, we can rip that box off and you can have a nice close-up look at all the work we've done. But when we're driving around or going on a trip, we can bolt that box back down and Bob's your uncle. We're gonna have no dramas. Now, I think that's everything. There is probably a lot of things I've forgotten, and I'm trying to remember them rapidly off the top of my head, but I simply cannot. So that is basically what brings us to the end of this little walk around. Kinsellas has absolutely knocked it out of the park. It's been weeks and weeks of, I guess, running into issues, fine tuning things, changing things up, trimming guards, trimming flares, pulling stuff apart, putting stuff back together, but I hope they would agree. I hope the Kinsellas team would agree as well as I would. It's all been worth the hassle. I think the end result is one of, if not Australia's toughest 80 series. And once we head up to HD Auto and get this engine put in it, once Bluefane build our diffs, we've got lockers and reductions and all sorts of fun stuff, as well as Automotive Superstore have hooked us up with an epic brake setup. Once we have all that stuff fitted up in this car, it's just gonna be an absolute beast. Absolutely unstoppable. I cannot bloody wait. Guys, if you've liked what you've seen in this episode, you know what to do. You gotta subscribe, you gotta send it to your mates, you gotta drop a comment, and you gotta fucking turn that little bell on so I can feed my kids. But otherwise, hopefully in an episode coming very, very soon, we'll have this thing more so on the road and not just being pushed around by sand power. See you next time.